for me, that moment allowed me to go, well, okay, if this is how I'm being perceived, where else in my world is that energy going out and people are misunderstanding who I am at my core? And that's not their fault. That's me, because I'm holding so much inside.
So changing it away from being the victim of the situation and saying, why is this happening to me, to empowering you to go, I can actually fix myself to fix the situation.
And exactly right.
Welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast, a platform dedicated to engaging discussions with inspiring individuals aimed at nurturing personal development. I'm Richard Thompson, your host, a father, entrepreneur, world champion Ultraman, and passionate about all things high performance. Our mission is to empower both ourselves and you to unlocking our fullest potential, recognizing that this life is no dress rehearsal. While I may not have all the answers, this show serves as our collective journey to uncover them. Today, we sit down with Kiani Mills. Kiani doesn't just run her own conveyancing business, she's a mosaic of life experiences, a mother, mentor, global speaker, and advocate for personal growth. Her journey is one of resilience, transformation, and passion, which she brings to every aspect of her life. Kiani's ability to navigate both the corporate world and the more spiritual self-development space is truly inspiring. Expect to learn about the importance of personal responsibility and self-awareness in business and in life, why empathy, or in Kiani's case, a deep sense of sympathy, is crucial in leadership and personal relationships, and the concept of the purple pill, a balance between the driven corporate mindset and a softer, soulful approach to life. All right, let's get into it. Kiani Mills, thank you so much for coming into the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, how would you describe yourself?
There's been a couple of instances where I've used the example of a mosaic.
Okay.
So we're going with that analogy.
Okay. What is it made up of?
Lots of experiences and moments in time, and some dark, some light, some colourful, some in between, different roles, different responsibilities, different masks, different personalities, different versions.
Grew up in Vic?
Victoria, good old Afghanistan.
And then?
Was colourful, very colourful, which was great. Taught me a lot at, some might say the pivotal years of life. Taught me to enjoy life, but just pay attention to your surroundings. And I don't know whether it made me hyper-vigilant, but definitely made me aware of my observations. And yeah.
You're in the space of, as you say, a mosaic and a number of things, but I would look at you as an entrepreneur as a large part of, at least on a business level, of what you're made up of. When did that come? When did you feel that?
I feel the truth behind that is that I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And that has led a very big part of my seeking in life. And while I've always maintained a solid space in conveyancing and property law, there has been so many adventures along the way. And that's the Kiani Mills trying to figure out who she is and what it is that spark that comes from those adventures. A good thing and a bad thing, it's quite sparse. Like, it's very, very broad. I get it from running a business. I get it from hosting a podcast. I get it from speaking on stage. I get it from sitting one-on-one and helping someone solve their relationship problems. I get it from my children. Like, there's so many elements to it that.
Have you been able to pick apart what part of those roles you really are engaged with, like in terms of a value proposition?
Look, I know that the common thread in each of them is being able to support, hold, guide and teach. It's being in that role of understanding why the colourful past that I had has led me down a path of being able to now support from totally different viewpoints and different perspectives and different, roles in that. But I don't feel as though I have found another common thread that would explain it. It's very much led by either I'm drawn to something or I get that fire, like that butterfly feeling, excitement inside. They're just like, this is it. Let's go.
Sounds like you've got a fairly high level of empathy to be in that space and those spaces. And then from what I understand, empathy comes thick and fast from experiences of your own challenges and traumas.
Mm.
What would you reflect on as the hardest part of your life in your growing up?
I'll explain why I'm laughing first, because when, it would have been 2018 maybe, my partner did some coaching for an organisation called Gallup. They do the Clifton Strengths Assessment Test. And when I did my personality test, there's like 32 or 34 strengths, and they rate them from 1 to 32 or 34. Empathy was number 34 on mine. And I was like, wow, okay. And then when it read down to the actual meaning of what empathy is, it's that you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and imagine what it would be to live their life. And so through that exploration, we realized that sympathy for me is very high. I can sympathize with someone and I can understand what they're going through from an intellectual perspective and from an emotive perspective. But because of the challenges that I've had in my life, I'm very much a find the solution. How do we get out of it? Instead of sitting in that, oh my gosh, I could feel and live and it would be hard and horrible. I'd be like, great, how do we move through it? So I'm laughing because empathy has
Actually,
always...
you're really you don't have any empathy. You're just really sympathetic.
Very sympathetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've missed that mark completely.
Really sympathetic.
Great.
I can sympathise, but yeah, empathy is a little bit more of a challenge, just purely because of my makeup. I have a can-do attitude, and for those of us that do, we can definitely sympathise, but there's always a solution. Back to your question that I hijacked. I don't know if there is actually one most challenging part. I feel like it's been what I would call almost like a collective of situations that amounted to a moment in time where I really did sit and go, who the fuck am I? And what the fuck have I done with my life? And that for me wasn't so much of, yes, there was traumatic milestones that I faced as a young adult and as a child and as an adult. But I feel like as going through those moments in time, I didn't know any different. Intellectually, I knew that what I was going through was wrong and bad. But because I'd never personally experienced it before, I didn't know how I should be responding. I only knew how I was responding, and I only knew that I had to then get through it. And so there wasn't all that much reflection that I took at those times. It was very much like survival mode. Let's get through it. Let's get on with it. Let's get out the other side. And because of that survival mode, I created like a shield that nothing could get in, but nothing could get out. And that was that version of me that just kept going and going and going and going and, achieving and succeeding and very ego-driven and
almost as a way to protect
absolutely
what you're experiencing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also too, like not to feel it. I didn't want to feel it. I don't want to feel it.
And you can't feel it if you're so focused on succeeding and
what's
doing
in front.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, I refuse to look back.
Yeah.
I don't want to know I know there's a shitstorm behind me,
Yeah.
but I'm not
Don't
looking
look in
back.
the rear vision mirror.
Totally. It's like, there's an animal, is it a buffalo maybe? When the storms come, they run and they don't get caught in the rain because they run, whereas the cows will just stand still and they will go through the storm. I'm a buffalo, right? I'm like,
Great analogy.
Hightail it, I'm out of here, right? The storm is behind me. And so I feel like it was when I was given an opportunity to ask myself, who the fuck am I and what have I done with my life? That all of that, the storm, literally came through.
Was there a moment that catalyzed that position of going, what am I doing here? Because I find that there's a lot of strength in some people are faced with that crucible moment in their life where it's like, well, now I'm forced to have that discussion with myself, right? Like it could be that the floor's been taken out underneath them and they've got to really evaluate what they're doing or something happens that's so dramatic that it forces them, someone passes away or whatever the situation is. And I find there's a lot of strength in people who that doesn't actually occur. And they go, a lot of people sit in this sort of grey area where they're not satisfied. They're not so dissatisfied to warrant the change, and they just stay there. Whereas I take there's a lot of courage, I feel, where someone wakes up and just goes, enough's enough. Is that you?
Yeah. I think it was a little bit of both. So there was no major life event. I think there had been so many major life events that by this point I was like, bring it on.
Yeah.
But there was 2 pivotal moments for me that, I mean, they didn't feel subtle because I obviously remember them, but yeah, no one died, which was great. One of them was when someone who I had recently met through the networking kind of space, we became good friends and we sat down, we went out for lunch, and he said to me, he's like, oh, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought you were a stuck-up bitch. Like, what? He's like, yeah, you like always got your head down and you walk into these rooms and you deliver your presentation, you walk straight out again. He's like, I couldn't believe it when I walked into your office and you hugged me and kissed me on the cheek and said hello. I was like, whoa, what are you, like, I was like flabbergasted by that because I'm like, I'm a lovely person. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, you're cold. You're shut off. You're intimidating. And for me, I had no awareness of that. I said to him, would you mind sharing? I mean, could I share what was going through my mind in those meetings? He's like, yeah, sure. I said, well, for starters, I've got I think they were like 8 and 6 at the time, kids at home getting themselves ready for school so that they could walk themselves across the road for school. So they're texting me pictures of their breakfast and their clothes, and I'm out the door because I was a single parent. I had no help. They had to get themselves to school. So then when there was arguments, I'm trying to do arguments while I'm trying to host a meeting, and I also had really bad social anxiety. So walking into that room was fearful. And not only that, I was like a 20-something-year-old woman standing in front of a room of like 40-year-old businessmen telling them how to run their businesses. I was like, I've got huge imposter syndrome. And he was like, oh, shit, I didn't realize any of that. And that for me, that moment allowed me to go, well, if this is how I'm being perceived, where else in my world is that energy going out and people are misunderstanding who I am at my core? And that's not their fault. That's me because I'm holding so much inside. And so from that point forwards, that was the stepping point to go, okay, well, my peers, my colleagues, my community have no idea who I am. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure that out. And then the second one came in the same week. Summer, my daughter, beautiful, beautiful, challenging, gorgeous girl. We had a lot of challenges when she was growing up. Through her diagnosis, she's mildly autistic and has ADHD. And so it was just a challenge to understand who she was and the differences between her and her brother. And before that diagnosis, I was at my wit's end. And I remember there was one afternoon after school when there was a big bust up, and she's like a volcano, a very unpredictable volcano. And there was one day where I was like, my cup was full. I was here and she exploded and she went into her room and slammed the door, and I went into the bathroom and just broke. And I was on the floor in the fetal position crying, being like,
how old is she here?
She would have been 5 no, she was 6. I was like, what the heck have I done to deserve it? Like, what have I done? Have I, like, my mind's like, did I run over a truckload of kittens and kill baby puppies or something in another life? Because I am a good person. Why is this happening to me? And that experience with what my friend had told me, I was like, oh, okay, well, if my energy is impacting people in my environment, maybe I'm impacting the kids. And I realized,
changing it away from being the victim of the situation and saying, why is this happening to me, to empowering you to go, I can actually fix myself to fix the situation.
And exactly right. And as I was laying on that floor, I was like, well, if this is how I feel, imagine how she feels. Because I couldn't allow that awareness to come through because I was so caught up in my protective bubble and holding everything together that I just had to let myself break to get out of that self-serving victim mode, to be like, well, you are in control. You are the only one that is going to determine how you turn up. So rather than trying to be everything for everyone, just first and foremost, the kids are most important. So from that day forwards, I was like, right, I'm going to learn those children. I'm going to understand them.
Gonna learn these children.
No, I know it sounds bad, but it really was. It was a sake of learning. And like Kobe got diagnosed with ADD. Summer had autism as well. So it was like they're not normal, whatever normal means, kids. And I didn't ever allow that diagnosis to determine or influence or label them. But for me, it was like, now how do I research it? How do I learn the best way to communicate with them? How do I support them at bedtime? How do I feed them the best food for their guts so their guts can feed their brains? And I went on that deep dive.
Leaned in
every area. And again, I went, okay, if it's this way at work, if it's this way at business, if it's this way with kids, is it that way in relationships? Is it that way with my family? And I became almost obsessed with trying to get to the bottom of all of the ways that I had contributed to my situations in every
so powerful,
horrible situation. And I came to that beautiful realization of acceptance. But I truly think that was the hardest journey, and it's still going. There's still things that pop up and come back. But yeah, in a very long-winded answer, that was it.
Yeah, I think, and I want to butcher this, but I think Jocko Willink says like, you didn't cause it, but you have to take responsibility for it. And I think that's what you're sort of saying, is that it's so easy in any situation, whether it's family, relationships, children, work, friends, to go, well, this isn't perfect, but that's because of X, Y, Z, and just push it away and say, obviously it's not anything that I'm doing because I'm perfect.
I'm great.
And particularly if it's starting to, all those different, there's a little bit of imperfection in all of the relationships, then you sort of go, well, you're the common denominator here, so mate, what can you do?
Yep.
And maybe the pursuit, and I talked about this, if you don't mind, Kiani, like when you start working on yourself in those different relationships or different categories, are you more sympathetic to the imperfections of others because you understand how challenging it is to work on yourself?
Absolutely. And again, like a lot of the process was being honest with myself and going, you are a very judgmental human. And I know for me that I used to put my judgments on others and make others wrong, bad, indifferent, guilty to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And exactly that. When you are able to see your own imperfections and insecurities and then witness that in others, it totally takes the bite off it. And even like if we bring it back to the parenting piece, I used to be so personally, it felt like a personal attack every time the kids, especially Summer, would lose her bananas. What have I done? I'm a bad mum. Really, this is her way of expressing herself because she needs something. I'm the one that has to carry it, but my role in this is to actually not take it personally, see what she needs and communicate that with her. And it's just like adults as well. Like, especially if someone's had a bad day and they walk into the office and they're like, they're like, okay, I haven't contributed to this situation that I know of, so how can I support them in it? But most people be like, hey, dude, what the hell are you doing? You know, it's how we respond to situations and react. Sometimes we don't need to react, but our natural instinct really is to get defensive. But when you can start to see that that other person is hurting or in pain or suffering or there's something else going on in their world, whether you know it or not, if you come at it from that viewpoint, well, there must be a reason why they're reacting or responding or behaving this way. It just takes the bite out of it, out of the situation and about the judgment of that person too.
So talking about the purple pill, that's your brand, that's your
signature.
Your little signature. Did that come as a result of this exploration?
Absolutely. Yeah, the purple pill was, and it still is a work in progress. It's more of it's a concept and a philosophy that I've acknowledged that my life has been guided by. And the ethos of it starts with the movie The Matrix. And in The Matrix, Neo, the main character, is given two options. One, take the blue pill and stay plugged in, be a part of the system, or take the red pill and unplug, lift the veil, But I guess the risk of that is you can't unknow everything that you know.
Mm-hmm.
So one, I see the blue pill is ignorance and the red pill is, awakening. But as I dove down into this deeper, it started from this notion of, well, why the fuck do we have to choose? I don't want one or the other. Why can't I be both? Because my life, up until that point when I decided to take responsibility for the direction that I was taking, I lived in the blue world. I liken the blue world to a fixed mindset, to a closed, behavioral stance, ego, success, power, external validation, being driven by others, needs, wants. It's a very masculine-dominated, power-driven space in this blue pill. It can be likened to some of the masculine traits of, yes, there's positives. There's positives and negatives to everything. There's power and there's ego, but there's also protection and support and care. But I knew for me growing up, I grew up in law firms, as we are. But the law firms that I grew up in were not like they are today. They were very male-dominated, middle-aged white guys who were not very respectful for women. It wasn't always a safe environment all of the time, and you really had to work your ass off 24/7, which I like to work, so it was fine. But again, I didn't know any different. This was the life, and I truly believed that you go to school, you get your education, you get your job, you find a husband, you have kids, you buy a house, and then you die. That was like the path that was led. And I was very stuck in that. And I truly believed I can't change. I am the way I am. I was born this way. If you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. Right? That was my true belief growing up. And I remember saying that to people in arguments. I'm like, well, I can't change. So what are you going to do about it?
Love that for you. Your
I was
previous self.
Really great, yeah. But then through this period of self-discovery, let's call it, I did lift the veil and I went deep down into the spiritual world. I, again, looked at all of the areas of life. I took responsibility for as much as I could possibly allow. And through that process, more memories came through that I had totally blocked out. But the red pill side of the world creates empathy. It's driven by love. It's driven by compassion. It's very grounding, very earthy. It's internal validation rather than external validation. It's community. It's the environment. It's a very, I'm using it's flowing and it's soft and it's soulful, which again, positives and negatives. The negative side to the red side is that they really do, they lose touch of responsibility and finances and even really a lot of, sometimes if you go too deep into it, there is no responsibility. It's, someone else's power, right?
Yeah.
So we relinquish all control. And so when I went down my journey of going down the red path, I personally loved the exploration, but I became a junkie and I was constantly looking for the next trigger or the next milestone to reach or the next, emotion to uncover or unlock. And it became really, really detrimental to me in my well-being because I could no longer focus.
You're almost working like you're getting so lost in the self-development rabbit hole that you're not actually developing at all.
It was almost as though I was going down the spiral because the deeper I went, the more it would feel and the more I would hurt and the more I was growing.
Yeah.
But
without actually achieving anything.
No, absolutely. And one thing I wasn't achieving was my business because all of a sudden it's like, I trust in faith. It'll work itself out. I'll cross my legs and put my hands on and
read the next few books and that'll be the enlightening that I need.
Absolutely.
The next time.
And that was where I realized that if I wanted to keep the business and I wanted to keep doing what I was doing, I needed to pull myself out of this red pit and pull on some of my blue. I needed to bring back my dedication, my passion, my purpose, my drive. And this was where I kind of sat with because I got to this point of life where I was dancing between both worlds.
Yeah.
I'd walk into the office and have my blue hat on and I'd be boss bitch, ready to go. Then I'd get home, I'd kick my shoes off, put my comfy pants on, put on some spiritual music, light the incense, and I'm a totally different person at home. And that became, even that was a juggle. So I'm like, who am I? Which language do I speak to this person? Like, it was just a constant, it was a battle of the wills between good and evil. That's what it felt like, right? And so this was where I led into and lent into this purple space of going, well, why can't I have both? Why can't I be a corporate badass and still be conscious and grounded and lead with love and compassion? Why not? You know, and then there was people from the blue side being like, meh, you can't do that. People from the red side, meh, it's, you know, out of alignment and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
no.
I got to the point where I was like, fuck you all.
Yeah.
I am going to be me.
Yeah,
I'm going to be me. And that was the most empowering thing that I ever have experienced in my life because I chose. And I didn't choose anything else or anyone else. I chose me. Me and my kids. What do we need? And that was the purple was the empowering place of
the middle ground.
Authenticity.
Yeah, being authentic for sure.
Absolutely. And I can walk into a boardroom and have the exact same conversation with the man sitting at the head of the table that I can down at the beach on a Saturday morning doing sunrise.
And it must have been a relief for you because there's a fair amount of energy pretending.
Fuck yes. And there's only one of me.
Yeah.
Right? There is only one of me doing
all
15 things for 15 different people.
But on top of all that energy that you're spending for those 15 different people, you're playing you're playing charades.
Totally.
With, well, am I the corporate bitch now, or am I relaxing at home with the incense?
Yeah.
Whereas if you can just, there is a significant, it's almost relief.
Yeah.
To go, oh, I'm just going to be me.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
For sure.
And I feel like that's, on reflection, no one ever made me be anything else. All I was doing was trying to be what I thought everyone else needed me to be. I was trying to fit into their world. I would meet people, and I got so, I guess, part of living in trauma and being in that survival mode and being hypervigilant, I would be able to mirror people's body language and I would be able to communicate with them that would reflect the level that they're at.
Without going too deep. But is that a reflection of your childhood where you didn't feel that you could be you?
Not so much childhood. I moved out of home when I was 16 and lived with my then boyfriend and his friends. I was 16, they were 18. And we had a lot of parties and there was a lot of drunk people and things go wrong all the time. And so I was kind of like the house mum. And I was so aware of what was going on my peripheral vision is insane.
Yeah, okay.
And I just became,
it's a high level responsibility.
Naturally heightened especially in situations like that. But I'm also the one that would step between two drunk guys fighting and calm the fight down. Right? So I was willing to put myself in danger because I knew that I could solve the problem. But at the same time, I was so aware of the danger.
Yeah.
And that just became such a state. And again, there's been benefits to it. You know, I have been able to communicate with those that, you know, I've been very fortunate with the people that I've rubbed shoulders with, and I can hold my own in those rooms, and there's definitely benefits to it. But at the same time, all I was trying to do was be what they needed me to be.
Yeah.
So back to that energy point, it's exhausting. And I feel that there would be a lot of people out there that are unconsciously or unaware that that's exactly how they're living.
So now you're on top of the business, the property law business, and you're now branching into self-development coaching. Talk me through that in the sense of how do you help, I guess, lifestyle planning?
Look, I think for me, I realized really quickly I'm never going to teach something that I haven't personally experienced. I have a very big issue with the coaching industry and how many disingenuous coaches there are. And so for me, I became really clear really quickly. I'll only work with business owners. I'll only work with people who are ready and willing to take those next steps to look underneath the curtains. And for a lot of people, the way that we are at home, around our family, around our children, around our friends, is a direct reflection of the way that we are in business. And then our business is therefore a direct reflection of who we are. And so I learned very early on in my journey, as I shared earlier, my representation, the way that I showed up, my leadership, my communication would then dictate, and I would be able to track it into business either going really well or the business going really bad. And so I have now stepped into a space where I'm absolutely comfortable and confident to be able to support, and I've got men and women clients, actually it's predominantly men at the moment, who are in those moments of life where, again, it's like, who the fuck am I? What do I want out of this life? Or the hamster wheel of life of going, I don't want to die doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Sure.
You know? And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be major changes and, we're going to sell the house and live by the beach or anything like that. It's more so just finding joy in what you're currently doing. And
it's the mindset of it, right?
Yeah. And it's like learning to live. If your job is a receptionist, for example, for a lot of people, they'd be like, oh, you're a receptionist. Like, no, I'm a goddamn receptionist. I am the first person that firm or company, I represent that brand. I am that brand.
How much is that attributable to the culture or direction of the staff and the team or the company versus how much onus should someone take? Because it's all mindset. It's the same job. It's whether or not you have that spring in your step to say, I am the goddamn first person that people see.
Yeah.
Versus I'm just the receptionist. Yeah, where is the blame or where is the responsibility? Because you just talked about how at some point you got to take responsibility from how you show up, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
But I also think there's some corporate responsibility to empower or at least help the individual.
100%. I believe that like everything, it starts at the top, good and bad. And that's why working with the business owner can then support in any cultural changes filtering down. But at the end of the day, it's that old saying, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. There's an add-on to that saying that says, but you can walk it around the paddock a couple of times to make it thirsty.
Yeah, fair.
So I believe, and this comes back to my little empathy, but a lot of sympathy, in that we all have a choice and we all are capable of changing, even if it's 1 millimeter. It doesn't have to be a massive mountain shift. But if the person that's steering the ship and leading the ship is taking responsibility for their actions, having open and honest conversations with people that they may have impacted poorly or somehow upset, or, we're talking from leadership downways now, then that is going to create a flow-on effect. And when it does come to staff, especially in big organisations, I believe that there's a two-edged sword with it, because while we want to retain our staff and we want to keep them happy and we want to keep them here and motivated, we also need to see beyond that and start to lean into the space of, well, what is their version of success? What is best for them? I had a beautiful girl who worked for me, Tanya. You met Tanya and spoke to her at least. She was amazing. I never wanted to leave her. Her to leave me either way. And we got through conversations, and I do a lot of one-on-ones with my teams, and we got to the point and it was like, babe, what do you want to do? She's like, I know I don't really want to do conveyancing forever. It's kind of a filler. And so rather than try and keep her or force her to stay or ridicule her or judge her, it was a mutual, like, great, awesome, what do you want to do? We figured out what her next path was, and she's now in there living that next journey of her life. And so that's where you look at it and go, well, are we setting them up to succeed or are we setting them up to fail? Because if as leaders we're becoming possessive or controlling of the people that we're trying to lead, that's not success on anyone's part.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I reckon, well, as far as I can tell, I hold a different philosophy with that's in line with that here, because I don't understand, and I've experienced it as an employer now with lawyers coming across from different firms and they have restraints. I fundamentally don't have them here, because you get someone to work with you or work in your business and you're all amped about it and go, you're going to be great. We love you. You're so great at this. Welcome to the team. We want to encourage you to be the best person you can be. Go speak to your referrals or your network and you go be everything to everyone. But as soon as you give notice, I'm going to make it a living hell for you because now you no longer are it's not in my best interest for your existence. So I'm going to slap a restraining trait so you can't actually practice law. You can't talk to the clients that I've actually encouraged that relationship. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So
I agree, but that is, I guess that was a perfect example of the blue pill thinker.
Yeah. Control and
absolutely
all that. And so, yeah, we don't have them. And if, similar to your experience, if someone who I ideally care about here says, with all the information that I have in my life, I've made the decision to do something else, go somewhere else, even if it's a competing law firm. So happy for you because I can understand it's going to hurt my bottom line, but that's okay. We'll be okay. But I'm so happy for you because if I was in that situation, and I guess this is where the empathy comes in, but you go as long as you're good, like you're not a narcissist, with all the information in front of you, you've made that decision to go there, then I'm so thrilled for you. And if anyone asks, I will tell them where you're going. Because that's the other thing at the moment, right? Like a solicitor will leave a firm and then a client calls the firm and they go, oh, we don't know where they've gone.
Yeah.
It's so disingenuous. But
this is why we get along so well.
But and away from the blue pill position is that I fundamentally believe that you create that culture
100%.
of you genuinely want what's best for them.
Yeah.
And if that's here, wonderful. If that's not, that's okay. That's still in the best interest. They're people. Then fundamentally that'll end up being a better outcome for all.
Absolutely. And I feel that a lot of business owners get so caught up in the bottom line or in the process or the structure of their business that they can't see that an unhappy employee will not produce results. Why would you accept 50% when you could have 100 from somebody else? Why are you settling purely because you're too lazy? I don't know. Or it's an ego thing. It's a control thing. Let them fly. Let them flap their wings.
And to a certain degree, it's probably even more scary that you need to bring the same perspective to all aspects.
100%.
Relationships.
100%.
Family, friends.
I feel like relationships is a really, really big one.
Yeah, it's hard though.
It is so challenging, but I've learned through practice, let's put it that way, if they're not meant for you, that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can extrapolate that out to the universe generally to say, don't force anything. Let it come. Let it happen. Take the opportunity.
Correct. I feel like there definitely still needs to be action.
Yeah.
We still have to take action.
Yeah, otherwise you're the far red pill.
Absolutely. You can't sit on the top of a mountain and hope for $1 million. Like you're going to have to get up and potentially pick up a computer or, do something.
Yeah.
But in relationships, I think it's the biggest one that I feel that we have almost been tricked into believing that, again, my blue pill world that was laid before me, find a husband, get married, have kids, blah, blah. I believe that there is beauty in that, and those who are able to find their partner and spend the rest of their lives with them,
so great.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
But the reality behind it when it comes to staff or partners or even just people that you meet, it's like we instantly put expectations on them that sometimes we don't even know, but we definitely haven't told them.
Yeah.
And so therefore what we do is we create a story or a fantasy in our minds of what it's going to look like. That staff is going to bring me X much dollars. That staff is going to do this for me. That partner, I can see us living on a farm with 2 kids and I can see the holiday, and we create these stories in our brain, and our brain doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. And so if we've created that story, that's what we're living towards. That's what we're hoping for. And if we put those expectations on either a partner or a staff member, when they were not capable or that wasn't their vision as well, again, we're stepping into a space of setting them and ourselves up to fail.
Yeah. Because even subconsciously, you're getting to crossroads every single day that's either going towards or away from that expectation or that, even if you're not aware of it.
Absolutely.
And so then that creates real issues when you're like, well, this isn't going, like you haven't processed it even, but this isn't getting closer to my farm analogy or your analogy of that.
Yeah.
So therefore I start resenting or I start hating this, or it becomes very challenging. Whereas if you were a little bit more open
Yeah.
to where this is going.
And I really believe as well that the only way to combat that fantasy versus reality, communication.
For sure.
And that is the hardest part because especially when we are relating, we are putting on our best show. Like we are performing because we want that person to like us and love us. And we are being the version of us that we truly believe and wish that we can be. That's not reality though. And so then when those moments of time where expectation and reality don't quite marry up, that's the courage that needs to come through to go, can we have a hard conversation?
Yeah.
And
why is it though? Because I've found the best relationships I've ever had in all aspects of life, there is an allowance from both sides for the environment to have those hard conversations. Why is it that it's certainly, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but for me, I guess there's only a handful of really good relationships I've had where I've been able to have those hard, like to create a space. And that's what I've learned as I get older to go, if I'm trying to develop a strong bond with someone, whether it's a new employee or otherwise, it's first to create the environment that allows those hard conversations to have. Why is it so difficult?
We were never taught. It was never modeled to us. It is somewhat of I would probably say like a newer age concept. Our parents were raised in times when there was no communication, and if there was, it was probably a backhand. That was just, the way that life was back in those days. We're going back grandparents and grandparents' generations now.
Sure.
Men have also been suppressed and, don't have feelings, don't have emotions, which again, we're coming into a really beautiful new age where we're encouraging men to speak out, we're encouraging conversations, but then there's also the rise of the feminist woman that is trying to be the masculine, and there's a lot of role modeling that I feel we now as our generation, you and I as parents or future parents, we get to model what we see as healthy. And that will be the only way that we can change the next generation of communication for the future. But there's still, we are the representation of the environment that we were raised in some way, shape or form. We learned all of our habits, our behaviors, our patterns and our emotions through our upbringing, through the big people that were watching over us. Like we were sponges. I joke all the time how pissed I am at my primary school because the books that were on the shelf in that primary school, I didn't get anything about astrology or spirituality or bloody Reiki or anything like that. I had no idea. So my world was very fixed based on what the environment that I was in dictated were my beliefs, my patterns, my behaviors. And so I think all of us as adults, we get a choice. I know I had a choice. Do I repeat the patterns of my parents or do I step out of them? I step out of it. Step out of them. That's not a word, but
yeah, you become the circuit breaker, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or you continue the pattern. So those who are continuing the pattern will continue the pattern. But those who decide to circuit break that narrative and are open to doing things a little different, which is conducive to them, no one else, then, change will come.
The business owners that seek your advice and mentorship, if I can speak from my own experience, that they're dealing with a lot of balls in the air. And there seems to be and this could be, anyone can take a leaf out of this who has multiple responsibilities, right? Whether it's an employee or a business owner. But you've got to be the very best person at work. You got to be, be the very best parent and all the other different hats you wear. But I sometimes feel like, and everyone feels it, if you're stressed at work, you come home and you're stressed at the kids, or you're not present. So what's your take, or what's your advice on trying to be able to be there, be present, no matter what shit fight that's going on?
Yeah, that's
other elements.
That's a really good question, and one that takes a lot of practice. But I liken it to the example of, how people go to like Gwingana or Bali and go to retreats, and they'll go, I'm going to go and do a 14-day retreat. I'm going to go and meditate and do yoga and take time out. And that's all well and good for while they're there. But then they come home They step in the front door, they've got tired kids, they've got business, they've got and all of a sudden it's all undone. So for me, part of that, my spiritual journey as a single mum with 2 kids, I had to do my journey in that environment. And it's almost like building the new muscle. It's like when you go to the gym, I want to get ripped. I'm going to do this many reps. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And for me, it was literally in those moments of, for instance, office. You finish the day at the office, I'd get in my car, I'd sit in my car, I'd be like, all right, this is my moment for me, whether it's 20 seconds, whether it's 2 minutes, it doesn't matter how long, but it's that I'm going to like emotionally and mentally leave that at the office and allow myself to get home and be that for my children. And while there is an element of still having to dance in different worlds, it's allowing one to be left behind to step into another. So you're not in 2 at the same time, because that's where the conflict comes from. And then imagine when you're in 3 and you're in 4 and you're carrying the whole entire day. And that was the day that I had the meltdown with Summer, was I was in like 5 different worlds and every one of them was overwhelming. And so it became a practice that even here, when I leave here, I will let this go. Okay, that was amazing. That was fantastic. Did I fuck it up? Maybe. Worry about that later. And then I'll go home.
We'll edit it out.
Yeah, totally. Thanks. And so it's that. It's like becoming like compartmentalising life to go. It's not all one mushy, flowy, sea of trash.
Yep.
It is separate, and it's okay to be separate. And then the most important part, especially for busy business owners, is you've got to take space for yourself. And even if for me, I do it in the morning before the kids wake up and I do it at night before I go to bed.
What does that look like for you?
To me, it's literally just sitting in silence on my own. Yeah. Or I might go down the beach and watch the sunrise. But it's on my own. I don't listen to music. I don't have my phone with me. It is time for just silence.
I reckon there's a fair bit in that, in the silence piece.
Yeah.
Because it's so confronting. So I like what you said in the sense of with compartmentalizing, but having a moment in time to let go and move on to the next thing.
And it's got to be intentional.
Yeah, right.
Like really intentional. I think that's the part that people forget.
But there's no intention if you clog your sensories with music, podcasts, phone calls. I've got to speak to on the way home from work to a household of kids. And my wife, I'm going to take 4 phone calls for work because it'll be productive.
That's called distracting.
yeah. It might be efficient for work, but it's not efficient for where you're going.
Yeah.
Right?
And I say all the time, like, no one's going to die if you don't, unless you're a surgeon. But in our world, no one's going to die if you don't return that phone call today. Do it at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning once kids are at school.
100%. And when you are intentional, and it could be just in the drive, or it could be seeing the sunrise, whatever it looks like to you. But I do think the common denominator has to be the silence piece for most. I can't imagine people can, on a long-term basis, manage the compartmentalizing with distraction.
Yep. And I have found that even like meditation music, distraction.
Yeah, fair play. And I think it also comes back to like, people might listen to that and go, "Oh no, I'm good with it. I can as soon as my bit is taking the shoes off of my feet and then I go into the house, right?" But then it's like with my sporting background, we focused a lot on sleep, and it's not just. Then people might go, "Yeah, I'm present with my kids because I take my shoes off a certain way that resets my situation." But maybe spending more time solo, without music, without interruptions, without distractions, you get on a whole different level. And so like the sleep bit is to go, well, I got 8 hours sleep last night, but it's like, yeah, but what quality of sleep, right? So it's not just.
How many lists did you write in your head while you were sleeping?
Yeah. Or how often were you thinking about work when you were with the kids?
Yeah.
How present were you? How often are you on their level?
Yeah.
Yes. Super interesting.
Absolutely. And I think that's another thing as well, especially with parents, like our kids, they are kids. As you said, like we've got to get to their level. We need to sit on the floor with them. If you want to communicate with them.
Actually and metaphorically.
Yeah, like physically.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to have a conversation with them, do not stand over the top of them.
And it's really like, I mean, your kids are older than mine, but it's really empowering, I think. Or at least, you can really get on it by going down to their level and looking at the world from their level. You're projecting so many adult concepts or like your expectations of them are such an adult level.
Mm-hmm.
And you go down to the, 75 centimeter height and you're like, oh, shit, I'm the dickhead here, right? Like,
that's such a cool realization, and it's so important. And, my kids are a bit older, and the more that I learn about them, the more I can look at life as fun. And it stopped being so serious, and I stopped being like, yes, I'm a very tidy person. I like the house a certain way. But if the kids are having fun, I'll let them have fun.
Mm.
I'll do it. I'll pack one more dishwasher. It doesn't matter. And it stopped being about like, yes, they're still routine. They have to do their chores, but don't take that element of fun away from them, because I'll tell you what, they grow so fast.
Yeah.
So fast, and it's gone in a heartbeat. And we miss so much. And just doing that every night, if you get home and you sit on the floor with your kids, they will want to crawl on you. They will want to jump on you. Like, Dad doesn't do this very often.
No. And I think you realize as well that it's not the quantity of the time. If you sat down on their level and played, and the challenge that I have and people parents who have multiple children at a lot of different different ages, their needs of you are substantially different. Mm-hmm. But trying to hit that every night, even if it's for 3 minutes or 4 minutes per child, to be at their level, then they'll never say, oh, Dad only gave me a few minutes of time. It's that Dad gave me that time. Yeah.
And if you bring it back to what you were saying before, what an incredible quality of sleep they're going to have from having their cup full, from having that one-on-one presence. And I say to especially separated parents, the dads in particular tend to be more, let's go do something. Let's go to bounce. Let's go to mini golf. Let's go to the movies. Let's do this. Or here's this gift. Here's this present. Here's this that. If there's one piece you take away from this, if you are a separated parent, it's that your presence will be more beneficial and important than any present you could give them. And I witnessed that with my two. Presence is all they want. And they're 15 and 13 now. They still just want presence. As much as they're like, thank you, Smee, don't go to me. They just want you there. They really do. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel like we could talk forever. We need a few episodes. If you are a business owner, though, we'll put details.
Yeah, awesome.
About your service.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of people, right, that need this to be able to balance what they're actually where their North Star is, what they're going towards.
Yep.
And being able to bring all the important people in their lives with them on that journey.
I think that's the big piece too. This is not a process of isolation. It's actually an internal process, but it's to create community. It's to create capacity. It's to create space. And the truest statement I've ever heard is like, we don't know what we don't know. And so there's no wrong in where you are right now at all. You are doing the absolute best with what you have, with what you've learned, with what you've gained. But if you are interested in what else is possible, then that is the curiosity. Just be curious, and that is it. And that curiosity might be that 1% that compounds over time, that in 12 months' time.
That allows your cup to be filled in all capacities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Possible.
And who knows what life looks like.
Before you go, 5 quick questions.
5. Okay.
5. What does success mean to you?
Fulfillment.
What does happiness mean to you?
Joy.
A number 1 book that you would recommend?
For the women out there, it's called Dear Lover by David Dider. And for the men, it's a David Dider book, and it is The Way of the Superior Man.
4 guests you would invite to dinner, not family or friends.
Ooh.
Dead or alive? They'll be alive at dinner.
Oprah.
Yeah.
Brene Brown. Elvis. Whitney Houston.
There's 4.
Oh, 4. Okay. That'd be fun.
And finally, Kiani Mills, a guest that you think we should have on the show.
Ooh, do they have to be Sunshine Coast based?
No.
Oh,
be as famous as you want. Give us a list.
Oh.
We're creating a list.
Okay. Famous.
Either.
I'm going to say that you need to interview my current coach. Her name's Krista Tier.
Okay.
She's doing phenomenal things, supporting coaches to be better coaches.
Yep. Perfect.
Integrity.
So good.
And I'll make the introduction today.
Kiani Mills, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being authentically you.
Pleasure.
And I've learned already so much, and I can't wait to get on more so on my kids' levels.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're speaking with a business owner, let them know all about the episode. It really means a lot to us. Until next time, peace.